Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. So do appreciate you tuning in this morning. Would you rather have AOC manage your retirement portfolio? Would you rather AOC manage your retirement portfolio or let the IRS do your grocery shopping for a year? Let me know in the comments section, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. And you can also text me 309-451-9299. Would you rather have AOC manage your retirement portfolio or have the IRS do your shopping for a year? Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Coming up, Illinois legislators, they support this hashtag Stop Hate campaign to combat anti-Semitism. So we're going to get into that here in just a second. Plus, an Illinois Democrat Congressman, a Democrat Congressman, Eric Swanson, warns of job losses due to SNAP cuts, sparking pushback from a former challenger of his. So we're going to get to that. Plus, the Illinois 9th congressional race is heating up. Both the candidates are accusing each other of extremism. So we're going to get into all of it here in the 6 o'clock hour. Plus, you won't want to miss the 7 o'clock hour. It's a daily show, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. RFK Jr. is making a major change with COVID vaccines, which I think is just long overdue at this point. And I'm glad that it's officially been changed. So let's get into it, shall we? And be sure to subscribe, Conservative Cat on YouTube. Search it up in your search bar. All right, Illinois legislators gathered to raise awareness about anti-Semitism. Well, yeah, they've been on social media. Eric Swanson, he kind of posted a bit. And this has been on the rise. Actually, and specifically in Illinois, anti-Semitism is a bit of a problem. 335 incidents reported in 2024. That's a 59% increase in the previous year. So it's a 59% increase from 2023. That's according to the Anti-Defamation League. I really don't like hate crime statistics. I don't like hate crime incidences, hate speech. I don't like any of these laws. I'm going to be honest with you. I think they're dumb. If you commit a crime against somebody, that's hate. Okay, so go straight to jail. You go straight to jail if you commit a crime against somebody, and it doesn't matter what race you are, color you are, sex you are. I don't think that any of it really matters. At the end of the day, did you commit a crime against somebody? If so, you got to go to jail. So supporting a Stop Hate campaign, that's State Senator Laura Fine, according to the Center Square, was asked about the lack of action from her party leaders in condemning violence, particularly on Illinois college campuses, where 79, you remember that 335 number of anti-Semitism incidents, that's the Anti-Defamation League's, the ADL's number. Of those, 79 incidents have occurred on college campuses. So anti-Semitism undermines the fabric of our democracy, dividing our communities, normalizing extremism, and giving permission to violence. Okay, so this is what State Senator Laura Fine said. We must respond with urgency. I know that many people have been silent because they don't know what to do or what to say, and I offer a simple charge. The way to push back against hate is to communicate with empathy. So she says anti-Semitism and undermines the fabric of our democracy, divides communities, normalizes extremism, and gives permission for violence. Okay. So Senator Laura Fine said that we need to communicate empathy for Jewish people and Muslims. State Representative Tracy Katz-Mull, a Democrat from Northbrook, according to Center Square, joined Fine at this Tuesday news conference. Okay, they're both Democrats in Springfield. She says, quote, "We're asking you to join the fight. According to the FBI, 68% of religious hate crimes in 2023 were Jewish, despite Jews only making up 2.4% of the U.S. population. This is why we're asking you today to join the hashtag Stop the Hate campaign." Okay, like I said, I think that the FBI statistics and hate crimes in general are just kind of dumb. If you commit a crime against somebody, go to jail. Answer for your actions. Actions have consequences. Doesn't matter if they're Jew, black, white, woman, straight, gay, it doesn't matter. So in 2023, the FBI reported 1,832 anti-Jewish hate crimes and 236 anti-Muslim hate crimes. So if we are going off of these statistics, and we're going to say hate crimes are a thing, just for the sake of argument here, 236 compared to 1,800 over 1,800. So when Fine says communicate empathy for Jews and Muslims, yes, of course, but we really shouldn't be talking about hate crimes committed against Muslims. It's a very, very small fraction of the hate crimes in this country. And I just read you the number, 236. And I'd imagine the Muslim population, I know there are like 300 million, something like that, in the Arab nations, Muslims, and there's only 12 million Jews in the Middle East. Now I'd have to look at the American makeup of these populations, but 2.4% is only what the U.S. population is here. Jews make up 2.4% of the U.S. population. I'd have to look up the same for Muslims, but either way, 236 incidents or hate crimes in 2023, anti-Muslim hate crimes, and then anti-Jewish hate crimes, 1,800. So we really shouldn't even be talking about Muslim hate crimes because it's a very small fraction. Sad that any kind of crime happens. I'm not trying to be unempathetic to Jews or Muslims, but I'm just saying, like, if you're going to be talking about hate crimes, that is not that is not the thing that should be center. Anti-Muslim hate crimes are statistically irrelevant in comparison to the 1,800 anti-Jewish crimes. I'm just saying. So this all comes from, they held this news conference because Elias Rodriguez, he was a University of Chicago, Illinois Chicago graduate, by the way, which, yeah, those places are breeding grounds for extremism. And he was accused of shooting these two Jewish individuals outside of the DC Jewish Museum last week. So tragic, so sad. And this prompted, obviously, the Tuesday news conference. Fine, she was asked about, so she says that we have to act with urgency. Laura Fine says we have to act with urgency. And she says, and I get it, not a lot of people know what to do or say, but let me offer you a simple charge. Let's just be empathetic and communicate empathy. Okay, but you weren't a sponsor of House Bill 3023, which would have allowed people to sue over hate flyers. That was the thing that was going on, where people were handing out anti-Semitic pamphlets on college campuses specifically. And that bill was stalled. So people would have been able to sue had you received these hate flyers on campus, or if you had received them in your mailbox and you're Jewish, you would have been able to sue the person if you could find the person who disseminated these hate flyers. Now, Fine wasn't a sponsor of that bill, and that bill, 3023, is nowhere to be found. Like, it's not going to advance. Okay, so there are legislative solutions to this if you want. I mean, I don't really like the bill in general. Like I said, I'm arguing oranges here. I really want to be arguing apples. Why are we counting hate crimes anyway? Let's just treat all people with respect, and people who don't, we lock them up and they don't see the light of day. But she says, right now we're focusing, bringing attention to the issue statewide, bringing awareness to the issue statewide, and having people sign on to the Stop Hate campaign so we can have more people, get more people aware of incidents that are going on and give people actions that they can do to prevent future hate from happening. Okay. So nothing. You want to say stop the hate and then leave it at that. Be empathetic and leave it at that. So some legislators, actually her colleagues, are pushing for the repeal of 2015 law. It's an Illinois law, and it looks to penalize, or what this law does, it penalizes companies that boycott Israel over their Palestinian policies. Okay, so this is a 2015 law. Governor Bruce Rauner, I don't really like this law. I am all for Israel. You guys know that. I'm a Christian Zionist. I believe that Israel should exist as a Jewish state. But I really don't like the 2015 law anyway. I mean, it's just, those who bless Israel will be blessed, those who curse Israel will be cursed, and God is the just judge. And it's really not up to us to be crafting these laws to penalize these companies for boycotting Israel. I think that God is going to do what God's going to do. And that's what the Bible says. Those who bless Israel will be blessed. Those who curse Israel will be cursed. So I'm okay with no laws at all, because my God is going to work it all out in the end. So I really don't even like the 2015 law, but it exists. And what it does, it tries to combat anti-Semitism. It forces companies to not boycott Israel and to do business with Israel in a way. So Fine was asked about those efforts and asked, hey, does that help combat anti-Semitism? And she suggested that had nothing to do with anti-Semitism. And she goes, that's a totally different issue. It's not. I'm here to focus on hate and anti-Semitism. If you were going to combat anti-Semitism, this would be the way to do it legislatively. And now your Democrat colleagues are trying to repeal the 2015 Illinois law that's been around for 10 years that penalizes companies who boycott Israel. And you're going to say that has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. And yeah, we should allow companies to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel. Okay. So the Stop Hate campaign, this is all just a ploy. Okay, really, it's all fluffy language. So they can get out there, do a press conference, and, you know, look like the good guys. And this is just really a way for them to save face, because meanwhile, their Democrat colleagues are pushing for the repeal of this 2015 Illinois law. They're also not pushing through it in the state house. If they want a bill to get through, if they actually want a bill to get through, it will get through. House Bill 3023, which would have allowed people to sue if they had received hate flyers, that didn't get through because the Democrats didn't want it to get through. It would have gotten through had they prioritized it, but they didn't, and Fine wasn't a sponsor of it. So they're not really looking for legislative solutions. They're just trying to do this feel-good campaign. And this feel-good campaign is connected to, you guessed it, nonprofit organizations like Southern Poverty Law Center and Not in Our Town. And they list these as resources on the Illinois Commission on Discrimination and Hate Crime website. Really, this is just a ploy to uplift nonprofits and make them look like they're doing something. They're not doing anything to combat anti-Semitism. If you were serious about it, you would have passed that 3023. If you were serious about it, and I'm not even necessarily, I'm arguing oranges right now. I want to argue apples. But if you were really actually serious about combating anti-Semitism, you would have done these things, and you didn't. So yeah, I think that, hey, those who bless Israel will be blessed. Those who curse Israel will be cursed, and God sees all. And I'm okay with no legislative solutions. We really should just be punishing people who are taking criminal actions against others. Okay, we can't punish people just because they're mean to somebody. If you're taking actions against crimes, committing crimes against someone, really doesn't matter who you're committing that crime against. At the end of the day, we just need to lock you up and make sure you don't see the light of day. All right, gotta shift gears. Actually, I gotta take a quick break, but I'm gonna be back and we're gonna talk about Eric Swanson, because he is arguing that the results of the SNAP cuts, the federal cuts, that is going to result in job losses. And I'll be right back with that here next. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button and share this out with your friends. Don't you know, liberal logic, minorities can't commit hate crimes. If they're combative, they're just defending themselves. Yeah, so that's one thing about hate crimes. Who defines what hate is? You know, and I don't really like House Bill 3023 either, because they say hate flyers. Okay, well, what's a hate flyer? Some hate is okay to express hatred. It's a natural thing that human beings do. And I hate, the color blue. I hate Nazis. I hate Hitler. Is that something that I shouldn't be saying? And who gets to decide what hate speech is permitted, what hate crimes are permitted, what ones aren't? All crime isn't permit or shouldn't be permitted. And we should just take that mentality like, hey, we're going to be tough on crime. And if you commit crimes against anybody, no matter their race, religion, creed, or whatever, I've really changed my position on this. And, hate crimes are just silly. So it's a silly word for the left. So that way they can rack up the sentencing for somebody if that person happens to be Black, or if that person happens. So George Floyd, the anniversary of George Floyd's death of fentanyl and meth overdose, because I'm just going to say that. He had like 16 nanograms of fentanyl in his systems. That was like 3 times the overdose amount. And then he had also been on meth, buried in a gold casket. Absolutely insane. George Floyd was not a nice person. Okay. And really what this crime against George Floyd, this hate crime, that was all bogus, and it was trumped up the charges. And this is a way, as you said, so minorities can't commit hate crimes. And who decides who's committing a hate crime? It's one thing that nobody likes to talk about is Black on Asian crime. And the statistics around this are impossible to find. And they won't define those statistics or those crimes as hate crimes. Although it's pretty evident that you've got one race targeting another, given the numbers and the statistics, and they, definitely keep these statistics quiet. But that is a clear race on race crime. But they'd never be charged with a hate crime if they, were to beat an old Asian lady, a Black male were to beat an old Asian lady. They would never charge those types of crimes as hate crimes. Really, as you said, Bob, that this is a way to get minorities to say, oh, you can't commit hate crimes, minorities. If you're combative with another race, or if you're combative with somebody because of their ways, whether it's a white person, whether it's an Asian person, you're just defending yourself, or you can't commit a hate crime, and they won't be defined as hate crimes. So, yeah, really, hate crimes, absolutely ridiculous. Now, I do think that there are instances of religious persecution. I don't know if we should necessarily call those religious or hate crimes, but there can be people who are religious extremism. There's terrorism. Okay, so that we already have rules and laws surrounding that. Why would we need hate crimes on top of that? If you're committing acts against people in the name of Allah or in the name of Christianity, there's already terrorism charges and charges that they can bring against you that aren't like hate crime charges. These are just stupid in general. Now, I do think that there is an anti-Semitic culture in America. I will not argue that. And I think that we should do something to combat the culture. But Laura Fine, she's saying we need to stop anti-Semitism. We need to stop anti-Semitism. But really what she's saying is, we're not going to do anything legislatively about it. We're going to allow my Democrat colleagues to push for boycotting Israel and sanctioning and divesting these companies to do that against Israel. So she's not really serious about anti-Semitism, I think. I think that she wanted to get out there and say some fluffy words. And like I said, I don't think that those are the solutions either. Really, when people commit crimes against Jewish people on campus, they should be expelled. They should be locked up. If you are committing, or if you're trespassing, if you're a vandal, you should be locked up. You should be charged, and you should be charged heavily. If you are with assault, with whatever, harassment, I mean, we already have the laws on the books. Okay, so there's no reason to say, oh, let's create more legislative or let's get more legislative solutions out there. There's already laws on the books. If we were to just enforce the damn laws that are already in the books, we wouldn't be in this situation. But what we've done is also foster a community on these college campuses of extremism. What we need to do is divest from these universities that push DEI, which is what Donald Trump is doing, and push extremism, activism policies. I actually went to I think it was the Normal West High School, and she flew, I don't know, some sort of other country's flag. It might have been the Mexican flag or something, but they're raising activists in public school, in these colleges. They're activists, and once they get to college, they're training extremists. So we need to divest from these universities, stop giving money to universities, federal dollars, state dollars to universities that push this sort of nonsense on our children and indoctrinate our children into becoming extremists, political extremists, and ideological extremists. Let's get to the Democrat congressman, shall we? Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Somebody texted in, one cannot legislate morality. Exactly my point. I'm not really for these legislative solutions. House Bill 3023, it sounded nice. The 2015 law sounds nice, but really you can't legislate morality. What we need to do is probably divest from these colleges, federal dollars, state dollars, get the tax money out of there until they stop indoctrinating and training up extremists, political extremists, radical ideological extremists. Probably need to pull the tax dollars from these public universities. University of Illinois at Chicago. This is where Elias Rodriguez was a graduate from, and he was just accused of shooting these two Jewish students, or Jewish individuals, outside the DC Capitol Jewish Museum just last week, and that's what prompted this news conference. Really what needs to happen is we just need to pull all of our funding from these public universities, which have decided that they're going to be indoctrination camps and extremist training camps. That's what these are. Political extremist training camps. So, yeah, that's my opinion, and love the comment. Yeah, one cannot legislate morality, and if you commit a crime against somebody, straight to jail, period. Doesn't matter what race, sex you are, nationality, and really religious extremism and terrorism. There's already laws in the books. There's harassment. We just need to enforce the laws that are already on the books. Why create this new category of crime called hate crime? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. All right, let's shift gears. Let's talk about Eric Sorensen. Eric Sorensen argues that jobs are going to be lost as a result of SNAP cuts, federal cuts, saying that Albertsons Jewel in Moline is going to lose 20% of their revenue. Now, a former challenger of Eric Sorensen is going to be pushing back. I talked with him yesterday. U.S. Representative Eric Sorensen, while in committee, highlighted the importance of food assistance programs, and community connection through a little personal story from his hometown. We're going to listen to this, and we are going to come back, and I'm going to tell you about Ray Estrada and what his response to this was. Here we go.
One of the things that we don't talk about is how much food costs in rural areas. You can get it cheaper if you're in a city. But if you're outside the city, you got to save more. You're going to have to pay more. And also, we're not talking about how this bill will hurt the people and the economy of rural America. Now, some of you might be shocked to learn, Illinois 17, we do not have one HOV lane. Most of us in Illinois 17, we actually don't even get on interstates in a week. We take gravel roads and we take the blacktop. There's no Whole Foods and there's no Trader Joe's in my district. We meet our neighbors at the county market, at Fairway, at Kroger, and at Schnucks. We shop the sales. We click on the digital coupons if you can figure out how their app works. But some of us still clip our paper coupons. I shop at the City Line Plaza Jewel in Moline, Illinois. A lot of my neighbors going through the checkout counter there use their SNAP cards. And if you go to the Jewel store, let me just tell you, go to the checkout counter where Steve's working. Because Steve grew up in that neighborhood and he has worked at that grocery store, at my grocery store, checking out neighbors for 50 years straight. What happens when Albertsons, which owns the Jewel, loses 20% of the revenue at my store? It's not that people will just go hungry in my neighborhood. Steve loses his job after 50 years. The people in the meat department lose their jobs. The pharmacist loses her job. The florist loses their job. Stores will close. And so let's understand that. And in rural areas, if you've only got a Dollar General, the Dollar General is going to close.
All right. I got to take a quick break, but we're going to be back talking about Eric Sorensen. Ray Estrada responds to that. He was a former 17th congressional candidate. He criticized, of course, Sorensen's rhetoric there. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. So dumb. Okay, so Eric Sorensen. This is Eric Sorensen. He's the 17th congressional, or 17th district congressman. Okay, Eric Sorensen. He was in committee and he highlighted the importance of these food programs. He said on social media, if states were required to cover over 10% of SNAP benefits starting next year, Illinois would have to pay $444 million in state tax dollars. Okay, so there are lots of cuts happening to the SNAP food program. Lots of cuts. $300 billion, I think it is, out of the Farm Bill. But there's even more cuts to SNAP. So here's who's not going to be collecting SNAP anymore. Able-bodied, not of retirement age, no children, adults, no dependents, adults. We're talking young 30-year-old males who are hanging out in mom's basement and collecting food stamps and not working, okay? And there's work requirements for SNAP now where there's going to have to be working 20 hours a week to get that SNAP benefit. So Illinois would have to pay, he says, $444 million in state tax dollars if the federal government pulls out these cuts. Now, in March of 2024, about approximately 2 million Illinois residents received SNAP benefits. Now, this is a sad number. Think about that. 2 million people are on food assistance programs. That means 2 million people, theoretically, can't afford food. Like, what are we doing? Okay, so you've got, of course, Representative Eric Sorensen saying, you know, Steve at the grocery store is going to lose his job if the federal government cuts SNAP because the Jewel and Moline is going to lose 20% of their revenue, which is just complete bogus. First of all, because what you lose in federal programs, you gain in not being taxed. Okay, they create these programs, tax you, take the money away from you, and implement this program. And then now you don't have enough money, and now you're going to have to use the program. That's what they do. They tax you so that way you need them. Okay, so Ray Estrada, he says, look, Eric Sorensen, he's relying too heavily on this emotional language and these personal stories, and he's not offering substantive policy solutions. Okay, now you guys ought to get a kick out of this. I went on Eric Sorensen's page. This is hilarious. Here's a quote from Ray Estrada, and he talks about Eric Sorensen and his lack of substance, and he's waiting to see this guy do anything of substance. He's been there for 2 years now, Eric Sorensen, and he says, look, he's not addressing long-term economic solutions. He's not addressing key issues like taxes, geopolitics, and he says that Ray Estrada argues that a stronger economy would reduce the reliance on programs like SNAP. We need to fix the economy so there's not such a heavy reliance on SNAP. Now, here's what Ray Estrada says. He goes, I have yet to see him act in a responsible way about these issues. Instead, he shares personal stories like his midnight dinners of peanut butter jelly sandwiches and shares pictures of his dog. So I went on, you know, the homework that I do is seeing how many posts Eric Sorensen made about peanut butter jelly sandwiches. The answer is 1 is too many, 2, 3, 4 within the last couple of years. That's a lot. I don't know about you, but I've never in my life thought about posting a selfie of myself with a peanut butter sandwich. And I guess Eric Sorensen has thought about it a lot because he has done it more than once. I think it's within the 5-minute search that I did, I think I found within the last couple of years, he posted it like 3 or 4 times. Some of those were ham sandwiches, okay? But most of them peanut butter jelly sandwiches. Could you imagine what George Washington would say about Congressman Eric Sorensen posting selfies with peanut butter sandwiches? Meanwhile, the people in his state and in his district, the Illinois 17th congressional district, they're all on SNAP benefits. So we've got 2 million people in Illinois on SNAP benefits, and then in rough estimate, 200,000 in District 17. It's a huge district. So he's got people who are so reliant on food assistance programs, so quite literally don't have enough money for food, to buy food. Okay. So, and they almost seem proud of this when they tout these numbers. Like, there's 1.9 or there's 2 million people in Illinois who are on SNAP benefits. There's 42 million people in the United States on SNAP benefits. These people are not going to, they're going to go hungry, right? That's what these Democrat congressmen say. It's almost like they're proud of that number. Like, I would not be publishing that number. If I was a congressman, I'd be like embarrassed of that number. I'd be ashamed that we've created economy and we haven't introduced legislative solutions or policies to uplift the economy to a point where we don't need to have our citizenry rely on food assistance programs. That's an embarrassing number, and he should be embarrassed by that number. And that 200,000 people in his district approximately are on SNAP. Why is it Democrats like almost seem proud that there's 2 million people in Illinois that are on SNAP benefits or collecting SNAP benefits and have SNAP cards? Like, this is insanity. All right, before I took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Eric Sorensen. Eric Sorensen was saying, oh, there's going to be a loss of jobs. There's going to be 20% loss of revenue for the Albertsons Jewel in Moline, where he shops. And now we've got a former challenger of Eric Sorensen's pushing back, Ray Estrada. He says, whoa, Eric Sorensen, you are relying way too heavily on this emotional rhetoric, this emotional language in your personal stories, instead of offering substantive policy solutions. He goes, quote, I've yet to see this guy engage in a responsible way regarding geopolitics or long-term solutions to strengthen the economy so citizens don't need SNAP. The cuts being proposed are aimed for people who shouldn't be receiving benefits in the first place, but Sorensen doesn't seem to care about what's really happening with EBT and SNAP. Instead, he uses it to play victim and blame Republicans, ignoring how Democrat policies over the last 4 years have contributed to an increased need for assistance. They take your money away to a point where you don't have any more money to purchase food, so you have to rely on these government programs. In March of 2024, about 2 million Illinois residents received SNAP benefits. That's an embarrassing number. If I was a congressman, I wouldn't even publish this. He put it out there on social media how many people are on SNAP in his state. That's an embarrassing number, not something that I would publish. If I was a congressman, I would avoid talking about how many people are on SNAP because it reflects on my job and how poor of a job I'm doing if I was a congressman. So he says if states were required to cover 10% of SNAP starting next year, Illinois would have to pay $444 million in state tax dollars to people who are currently receiving SNAP benefits. The goal is that the taxation, if we stop taxing people to death, that they're going to have enough money for food and they won't need to rely on the government for these programs. Sorensen warned that SNAP cuts would lead to closing of Dollar Generals and small town grocery stores. He says there's no Whole Foods and there's no Trader Joe's in my district. We made our neighbors at the county market, at Fairway, at Kroger, and at Schnucks. We shop the sales, click on the coupons. If we can figure out how the app works. And he goes, some of us still clip the physical coupons. I get it. I do that. I do. I get what he's saying, but he's playing on your emotions here. And he says it right here. It doesn't take a meteorologist to forecast that there's going to be food deserts everywhere. Food deserts. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Food deserts everywhere. So Ray Estrada, he criticized Eric Sorensen and he said, look, this guy has not worked on key issues. He's been there 2 years, geopolitics, taxes, long-term economic solutions. He's not offering any solutions to the economy, so that way people don't have to rely on these programs. And this is shocking. Get this. You guys are going to love this. I took about 5-10 minutes. Within the 5-10 minutes that I took to search Eric Sorensen's social media, I found that he's published or posted about peanut butter jelly sandwiches at least 3 to 4 times. 3 to 4 times. I say 3 to 4 because the fourth time I counted, it wasn't a PBJ, it was a ham sandwich. You take selfies with sandwiches. Okay, could you imagine what George Washington would be saying right now if he saw Eric Sorensen as a congressman? There's 200,000 approximately people in his district that are on SNAP benefits and relying on this program for food. And he's sitting there posting selfies with peanut butter jelly sandwiches or sharing pictures of his dog. Ray Estrada says, I'm still looking to hear anything from substantial from this guy. What's going on about taxation? Absolutely insane. And they tout this high number of people on SNAP. That's what really bothers me. They almost sound proud of this number of people needing these types of services. I want to get to this. This is Illinois 9th Congressional District race. And I haven't heard of this race. It's up north. It's Chicago. I try to stay out of Chicago politics. They freak me out. But Kat Agabazale claims that that's her name, Agabazale. I think I'm saying that right, but she's an extreme Democrat, okay? And she claims that her opponent, her Republican primary opponent. Now, there's a couple Republicans in this race, the Illinois 9th District. One Republican, straight up rhino. The other one, Recio Cleveland. She's a woman. She is a conservative through and through. If I was voting in the Illinois 9th, I think I'd vote for her. So this Cat woman, okay, her name's Cat, but with a K, mine's with a C. So take that. I love my name. Cat, C. But she's Cat with a K, and she claims her opponent is to blame for someone vomiting outside of her campaign headquarters. Okay, so I found this story. It's so hilarious. The indoctrination camps did a really big number on this friend of mine, acquaintance of mine from high school. And I go and I click through his social media stories to find my stories of the day and figure out what the left is thinking and what they're talking about. So this Cat is like very popular in leftist circles. She's an extreme progressive. Hassan Piker. I didn't know who this was. I'm kind of embarrassed, but I kind of get in my echo chamber. But I try to branch out and see what my public school indoctrinated classmates are saying on social media. So I go and I find that he shared this video, unironically, by the way, of Kat in the Illinois 9th District. And she had some sort of campaign event with Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker is a popular Twitch streamer and really, really far left, like extremely far left, like the Nick Fuentes of conservative circles. He's that for the left. Okay, that's kind of like an apples to apples comparison. So he's really just a rage baiter on Twitch for the left. So recently, Cleveland, the Republican primary opponent, there's 2 Republicans, there's got to be a primary. So she recently called Kat's campaign headquarters home of Hezbollah because of her campaigning with Hassan Piker. And she's saying that, well, Recio, the Republican primary candidate, her team is saying that it's pretty common in that area for them to publicly defecate or vomit. Okay, so I'm going to play the clip that I'm talking about. So again, this was one of my old classmates. Public indoctrination did a real number on this fella. I feel bad for him. But he shared this on his social media, and I did a deep dive and looked into Kat and looked into Recio, called Recio's campaign. And they informed me that, yeah, well, where her campaign headquarters at, it's a comedy club and there's bars there and people drink and there's quite the homeless population there. I mean, come on, it's like the Chicago area, okay? So let's take a listen. Here we go. This is Kat Abagazala. Here we go. Azela.
I didn't plan to record this video. That's why I look like this. But unfortunately, my campaign office has to hire private security now. Not only did a Republican primary candidate claim that our campaign office was the home of Hezbollah, but now we have an individual who keeps coming and throwing up on our doorstep and has displayed enough concerning behavior and harassment that we want to make sure that the campaign and, more importantly, our volunteers are protected in case things escalate. So we would rather use our campaign money for, our community service and mutual aid work, but we also want to make sure that A, everyone's safe, and B, people aren't intimidated or put off to be able to come into the campaign office, either to just exist or to pick up resources like clothes, toiletries, food. So I'm asking if you could donate. Any amount helps to help us cover his cost, because we at least have to hire security in the interim until this situation is resolved one way or another. We don't want anyone to get hurt, including this individual, but we really care about keeping our volunteers safe. So if you can go to catforillinois.com and contribute anything, it would be a huge help. Or, share this post.
I'm sorry. What in the conspiracy theory is this? She actually thinks that this Republican primary opponent, and really it's not even her opponent yet because there's a primary that's got to happen. So she actually thinks that Cleveland, the Republicans sent somebody there to go vomit on the doorstep. Like that takes somebody really deranged. And do you know how hard it's pretty hard to go and make somebody puke? Okay, like how do you tell somebody, hey, we want you to go puke here? They didn't leave a note, nothing, and she jumps to this conclusion that it's the Republicans. The Republicans sent somebody here to come vomit on my doorstep. It's probably the fact that your campaign headquarters are in the hellhole of Chicago, and that your campaign headquarters are right by a comedy club and by all these clubs and bars where people are drinking. Okay, most likely that's the logical answer here to why you've got vomit on your doorstep. And really, what I think this is, it's a ploy. She is interesting. I got to take a quick break. But she runs her campaign not like most other campaigns, and this is kind of interesting to see. She doesn't ask for contributions. Instead, instead of actually asking for funds to run a campaign and run an office and pay people to pass out literature, what she does is she asks for tampons and pads, and then she goes and donates them to nonprofits who then in turn probably contribute to her campaign. But anyway, she's trying to run a campaign without spending money or making money. And nobody's ever really done that before. I mean, props to her. It's odd, hey, instead of $500, don't contribute $500 to my campaign. Instead, I want your pads and your tampons so we can give them to the needy. Weird. Again, if George Washington was here, he'd be like, this is a candidate for Congress? Are you kidding me? She's asking for tampons and pads as campaign contributions. Again, so she's trying to get money here. Now she's realizing, hey, that's not how the real world works. Tampons and pads aren't actually a form of currency. And if you want a campaign headquarters and if you want to pay people on your campaign, you actually need money. I think really what this is a ploy. She's trying to say, oh, we need private security, and she's trying to solicit funding for her campaign. Because she's run into a little bit of a hiccup here where she needs money. All right, I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Absolutely wild. I don't know, donate tampon and pads. So I've got a clip here that you guys are gonna get a kick out of Kat. Kat Abagazale. I don't know. She's actually like more of a social media influencer, and she just like recently entered into this congressional race. And I think that it's really just to get her some more followers. Like I think that's what she's really wanting at the end of the day. Is she wants more followers on Instagram, Twitch, whatever she is on, and she entered into this congressional race to kind of bring attention to her, right, and to get her name out there. So this is on Instagram. You guys will get a kick out of this. She talks about, instead of campaign contributions, she wants you to donate like tampons and pads to her campaign, because that is going to definitely win you the election. Not really. Take a listen.
People right now. My name is Calaba Ghazale. I'm running for Congress in the 9th District of Illinois. And part of the reason I decided to run is because I saw how much money gets wasted in politics. And I thought, what if we spent it differently? That's why my campaign is focused on direct action and mutual aid. We are trying to make as many parts of this campaign dual purpose, to not only get the message out, but also help people while we do it. Our kickoff event, for instance, didn't charge $500 a plate. People just had to bring a box of pads or tampons, which were donated to Chicago's Period Collective. By the end of the night, we had gathered over 5,600 period products, which went to people who can't afford them. That helps folks right now. And this past weekend, we did a food drive for Evanston Community Fridges. They do amazing work. They have fridges all around the community that people can just go and get free food. We asked folks to come out and donate food in exchange for a campaign yard or window sign. And by the end of the day, we were able to fully stock the empty pantry and fill the food with frozen meals, produce, and eggs. That's feeding people right now. Every single year, political campaigns spend billions on American elections, and only one candidate wins each race. So where does that money go? Well, for many campaigns, they hire a bunch of consultants, many of whom have lost more races than they've won. There's also, of course, the political ad industry, where you spend thousands of dollars on highly produced ads, maybe a dozen that are slightly different, but mostly indiscernible. And then, of course, there are frivolous expenditures. If you look at a lot of FEC reports for different campaigns, you will find stuff in there where you'll ask, what the hell does this have to do with an election? But something you'll rarely see is concrete help in their communities during the campaign. And frankly, to me, that just seems stupid. Not only do you get to help people, supposedly what you're running to do, but it also shows what you're about, instead of just providing lip service. I mean, last week, we launched our high school public service grant program. This summer is going to be difficult as costs rise because of Trump's tariffs, as summer programs are being cut for kids, and jobs are difficult to find. So we thought, hey, if a high school student has an idea for a community service or mutual aid-focused project, why don't we help them do it? We'll provide resources, money, materials, volunteers, our platform, and then help them accomplish this goal, which tangibly helps their community. And don't worry, we checked to make sure this was legal, and it is. The dirty truth is that politicians choose not to spend their money this way. And I think we should be asking them why. If there's a candidate in your community, see where their money comes from and ask who they're serving. I mean,
she's not exactly wrong here. I actually agree with some of what she's saying here. Now, the real world exists, and you have to market yourself at least a little bit as a candidate, and tell people that, hey, you got to vote for me. Now, she's doing this in a very unique way, but she's running into a problem because, hey, people want money in order to work on your campaign. Hey, rent costs are a thing. And now she's soliciting funds for private security, right? I think this is all just a ploy to get her some campaign contributions without talking out of both sides of her mouth. Now, I think that this could be done where you actually take your campaign contributions and use it for good. And this isn't illegal, like she said. And I think that more politicians should do stuff like that 100%. But the thing is there wouldn't be such a need if her party, the Democrat Party, and we talked about this with Eric Sorensen, if they just stopped taxing people into oblivion and they stopped stealing their money. Okay, and that's what she doesn't get is, hey, people want to take care of themselves. People want independence from the government. That is the fabric of who we are as Americans. And she has this bleeding heart, and she's one of these liberals who thinks that you won't be able to do it without me. It's a God complex that these people have got. And that's where she messes up, is where she thinks that people don't want to help themselves and that she is needed. And they do it from a place of like, hey, I've got a God complex and you need me. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. So I do appreciate you being here. Hey, don't miss it. Don't miss it. You guys are going to want to head on out to the Eagles Club in Bloomington. This is our rescheduled cruise stop. So that's going to be from 5 to 7 p.m. on Friday, May 30th. Grab a green crayon if you have to. Write this down. Eagles Club on South Main, Bloomington. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat. Bones in my coffee this morning. So get ready to cruise with Cities 92.9 and Expedia Cruises in Normal. You can register for the cruise, become a finalist during our many cruise stops throughout the spring. And we're going to be taking entries, drawing 2 finalists to win a prize pack to qualify for a spot at our grand prize giveaway on June 25th at the new Smash House Tavern on Prospect Road in Bloomington. Got to be 21 years of age to enter or to register. And we're going to draw the first finalist 30 minutes in. So don't be late, 5 to 7, Eagles Club on Main Street in Bloomington. That's Friday, May 30th, just a couple of days away. So coming up next, I'm going to wrap up this Kat Agabazale thing. It's really fascinating how she is actually asking for like period tampons and pads for her campaign. And in a way, it's admirable. She's right. Where these people, these corporate interest groups come in and they donate to the politicians and they're beholden to these corporate interest groups or these nonprofit organizations. Really, that's probably what's going on here. Her nonprofit organizations are contributing to her campaign. But anyway, I'll have to look on illinoissunshine.org. But she's saying, hey, I don't want any campaign contributions you give me. We're going to take that and we're going to provide aid to people in the community. And that's kind of admirable. But here's where liberals get it wrong. They're bleeding heart liberals. They think that they are needed. And really what Americans want is their money not to be stolen and to have their independence from the government. That is who we are. That is the fabric of who we are as Americans. And she doesn't quite get that because she's got kind of this God complex. She thinks that people need her. She thinks that she's special. Okay, so that's why she's asking for these tampons, these pads, and she's going to go donate them to the Chicago Period Collective, which is a nonprofit organization probably funded by progressive billionaires, the same progressive billionaires she claims to despise. But that's Kat Agabazale. I've got one more clip from her, and she's running in the Illinois 9th Congressional District. And then you won't want to miss it. RFK Jr. makes this major change with the COVID vaccinations, and I think it's just long overdue at this point. Plus, Kamala Harris tosses word salad again, and she says something really weird. This is probably the weirdest thing Kamala Harris has ever said. And then we're going to get to Democrats arguing that they can't use woke words anymore because it alienates too many voters, and they're going to try to deceive you and use different words now. I'll be right back. Yeah, so we're going to get to this clip one more time. This is Kat Agabazale, and she's going to talk a little bit. And I'm going to have this clip play for our radio listeners. Yeah, the bleeding heart liberals. You need me. You need me. So I told you I was going to go on illinoissunshine.org. This is how you figure out how much money is being contributed to these individuals and from who. So she claims that she's not going to take money from corporate interests, and she's not going to be beholden to these corporate interests. So, for example, the unions, the teacher unions and things like that, I sure hope not to see that in her campaign coffers. Because these politicians in Illinois are so beholden to these union organizations. These unions have been weaponized. They contribute to their campaigns, and then they go and they craft legislation that is favorable to these groups that contribute to their campaigns. So this is Kat Abagazale. That's quite the name. Abagazale. But she is all about this Hassan Piker. She's done campaign events with him, I guess. Kat Abagazale. I'm going to try to find her. Maybe she probably doesn't have to report it right now. Yeah, I think it's too early to really see what kind of expenditures they have and what kind of contributions they've got because we haven't even really entered the primary season yet. So they don't have to report it right away. So there's not a whole lot on her campaign coffers and what they look like and how she's getting her money. But most likely, this is what happened. Chicago Period Collective or something like that contributed to her campaign after she pulled this stunt with the tampons and the pads and collecting that. Like, could you imagine what our founding fathers would say? Like, she goes down this conspiracy rabbit hole, accuses this Republican primary opponent. It's not even really her opponent at this point. She's kind of jumped the gun here. She accuses her opponent of sending people to her campaign headquarters to bomb it, to barf on her doorstep, which is just conspiratorial. It's just, that's a straight up conspiracy theory. Like, you've got to be pretty insane to go send somebody to puke on somebody's campaign headquarters. And a more logical explanation would be, hey, your campaign headquarters located right by a bunch of bars and a comedy club. Most likely somebody got drunk and keeps throwing up. And it's probably pretty common there in Chicago, being that it's people publicly defecate and vomit all the time. So we're going to be right back. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. I'll be right back. Welcome to the Conservative Cat Show, 7:05 a.m. So do appreciate you being here every morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. It's Daily Show. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, and subscribe to the channel. Yes, Kat Agabazale, her opponent. It's not even really her opponent at this point. So I looked on IllinoisSunshine.org. It's too early in the campaign, really, to be looking at their coffers right now. So I wouldn't be shocked if I found nonprofit organizations contributing to Kat Agabazale. She claims that she doesn't want to take any corporate interest money. And it's in a way admirable. Like, yes, she's exactly right. So specifically here in the state of Illinois, Republicans and Democrats, they take money from unions, the teachers' unions, and that's why the teachers' union get whatever they want at a legislative level. And they get so much money. Like, we're talking $20,000 approximately per kid, per student. These school districts get insane amount of money. Why is that? Because the teachers union contribute to the politicians, who then say, okay, we're going to give you all kinds of funding. So that way Barry Riley can collect a pension of over $200,000. He's retired. So yes, 100%. She's got a point here, and what she's done with her campaign is kind of interesting, where she only takes like donations of tampons and period products, and then she turns around and provides aid to her community. And it's almost admirable, but then you remember, oh wait, she's a liberal, and she's doing this because she's got a God complex, and liberals are all about taking your money so that way they can be your God, replacing government, or God with government. Okay, so taking your money, stealing it from you, and saying, hey, we've provided a program and you guys can take SNAP benefits, and we've provided this program to feed you. You need us. Yeah, well, I didn't need you. Before you took my money, I had all the money I needed to go get food. So this is a Instagram reel, and like I said, she's like a YouTuber or Twitch streamer. I don't know. She's with Hassan Piker at campaign events, which is what led, and rightfully so, Riso Cleveland, her Republican primary opponent. Really, she's not even her opponent at this point. And she accused Riso of sending somebody to her campaign headquarters to vomit on her doorstep, which is just wild conspiracy theory. Do you know how hard it is to probably find someone to say, hey, we need you to go make yourself throw up on this woman's doorstep? You couldn't pay somebody enough money to go do that, I don't think. So this is an Instagram reel of hers where she talks about her campaign and how she's using her campaign to provide this mutual aid rather than collecting campaign dollars, contributions. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
Right now. My name is Calaba Ghazale. I'm running for Congress in the 9th District of Illinois. And part of the reason I decided to run is because I saw how much money gets wasted in politics. And I thought,
I agree.
What if we spent it differently? That's why my campaign is focused on direct action and mutual aid. We are trying to make as many parts of this campaign dual purpose, to not only get the message out, but also help people while we do it. Our kickoff event, for instance, didn't charge $500 a plate. People just had to bring a box of pads or tampons, which were donated to Chicago's Period Collective. By the end of the night, we had gathered over 5,600 period products, which went to people who can't afford them. That helps folks right now. And this past weekend, we did a food drive for Evanston Community Fridges. They do amazing work. They have fridges all around the community that people can just go and get free food. We asked folks to come out and donate food in exchange for a campaign yard or window sign. And by the end of the day, we were able to fully stock the empty pantry and fill the food with frozen meals, produce, and eggs. That's feeding people right now. Every single year, political campaigns spend billions on American elections. And only one candidate wins each race. So where does that money go? Well, for many campaigns, they hire a bunch of consultants, many of whom have lost more races than they've won. There's also, of course, the political ad industry, where you spend thousands of dollars on highly produced ads, maybe a dozen that are slightly different, but mostly indiscernible. And then, of course, there are frivolous expenditures. If you look at a lot of FEC reports for different campaigns, you will find stuff in there where you'll ask, what the hell does this have to do with an election? But something you'll rarely see is concrete help in their communities during the campaign.
Okay, so Bleeding Heart Liberal, she thinks that she is needed. Really, what people want is independence. They want their money to not be stolen so that way they can feed themselves and buy their own period products and tampons. A box of tampons, I mean, this is just absolutely insane. It costs $10. I mean, the fact that you have people in this country who can't afford that is really, really sad. And it's a testament to how bad the Democrat Party is and how many lies that they've told you. We're going to help you. We're going to help you. Okay, well, I still can't afford food and basic necessities like period products. So that's Kat Agabazale, conspiracy theorists associated with Hassan Piker. Go look up Hassan Piker. Definitely extremist, leftist extremist. And rightfully so. I think Cleveland, the Republican primary opponent in that, or Republican in that race in the Illinois 9th, rightfully so, called this the home of Hezbollah. I mean, I know it's kind of rage baity, or it's extreme, or it's a catchphrase, but that happens in politics. Maybe you shouldn't associate yourself with people who are pro-Hezbollah, pro-Hamas. That's Hassan Piker. All right, so RFK Jr. making a major change in COVID vaccinations. We're going to get to that. And plus, in the 7 o'clock hour, we want to get to Kamala Harris tossing word salad again. The Biden administration did everything they could to recommend the jab. Remember? Or they were like, get the burger, get the fries for free. If you present your COVID jab card, you're going to get a burger and fries for free. They did everything they could to jab the masses with this experimental injection. And there are 0 long-term studies on this thing still. And the CDC, despite there being 0 long-term studies on this thing, they recommended it for children and pregnant women. That is no longer the case. Thank you, RFK Jr., for making America healthy again. So, in other words, there is no evidence that this should be recommended. This shot should be recommended to kids in and outside the womb. Okay, so that's what, and America is slowly becoming healthier again with RFK Jr. as the HHS. And that is because the current administration has decided to follow science, not the science, not political science. So Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has announced that the COVID vaccination is no longer going to be recommended for healthy children and pregnant women. There is no need for this. There are no long-term studies, and they're not affected by COVID-19. Okay, the kids, they don't even really experience symptoms if they contract COVID-19. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary, and I'm here today with NIH Director Dr. Jay Bhattacharya and FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary. I couldn't be more pleased to announce that as of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule. Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
That ends today. It's common sense and it's good science.
There's no evidence healthy kids need it today, and most countries have stopped recommending it for children.
We're now one step closer to realizing President Trump's promise to make America healthy again.
Wow. I'm old enough to remember when the left decided to keep your kids out of school and away from human contact because there was a potential that somebody was going to infect them with the invisible sniffles. Okay, so you guys remember they shut down schools, they took your kids out of school, they limited human contact, they locked you down, and that was because you could possibly get invisible snuffles. And, you know, I don't know, a virus that was that catastrophic, you know, you had to be tested to figure out if you had it. I don't know. Is it really that catastrophic? I mean, yes, 100%. If you are obese or if you are in these vulnerable populations, and we had this data. It wasn't like we didn't have the data. We had the data available at the time that proved that kids were not affected. Healthy adults were not affected by COVID-19, by this virus. A lot of the time, you didn't even really get symptoms. Right. So it wasn't based on science. None of it was based on science. It was ultra obese people and people with comorbidities that were contracting the virus and dying from the virus. Now, those data points or those numbers were not accurately reported. They reported it all the same, people who died from COVID or with COVID. So people who happened to test positive with COVID, but died of something like a heart attack. Okay, they counted it as a COVID death. So McCary, he chimed in here in this clip, and he said that there is no evidence healthy kids need the COVID vaccine, and most countries, besides the United States, really, have not been recommending this for children. So I don't know how you could really still recommend this for the general population. Most people I talk to who have gotten the jab or boosted multiple times, they wind up contracting COVID-19 more than the person with natural immunity. I am jabless. I did not get the jab, and I only had COVID once. I know several people who have gotten the COVID booster shot, like they're on their 7th booster shot, and they've had COVID like 10 times. So I'm no political scientist, but take whatever I say with a grain of salt. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I see it the way I see it. I see the evidence before my eyes. And the fact that this vaccine was fast-tracked and then they recommended it for kids, that's a scandal that should never be forgotten. There are no long-term studies on this, on how it affects pregnant women, children in the womb, and children outside the womb. And kids often bear the burden, really, of these progressive social experiments, and it's really sad. And they say, oh, this is going to save kids' lives. I'm waiting for the evidence that suggests that vax saves lives in general. This vaccine saves lives at all, because I haven't seen anything. In fact, I've seen the opposite, where people are injured from the vaccine. That being said, slowly but surely, America will become healthy again, and I'm hoping that RFK Jr. does not lose momentum here, and the left can't do anything about it for the next at least 4 years. So that's good. Kamala Harris, let's get to her, shall we? Shall we? Kamala Harris, oh boy. So for some odd reason, she started talking about Playboy magazines. I don't know. She said that Playboy magazines were developed for the perpetuation of the human species. And I know what you're thinking, Kat. Are you being hyperbolic? Are you exaggerating what Kamala Harris said just for comedic sentiment here? Are you being hyperbolic? Are you exaggerating? No, let's actually take a listen to exactly what the former vice president and failed presidential candidate said.
She would say, you look at, we're in the store or whatever, you look at the cover of Playboy magazine. Let me just tell you, the reason that people are looking at these things, understand why they were developed, for the perpetuation of the human species.
What? What? Oh, I don't know what that is supposed to mean in context. I've got no idea. So it's unclear what that means. As you exist in the context in which you exist, and you exist in the context. So I'm quoting Kamala Harris there. Perpetuation means indefinitely, and human species means Homo sapiens. So according to Kamala Harris, humanity would cease to exist without Playboy magazines. Got it. I didn't think she could dumb herself, but there she is. She did it, folks. She outdumbed everybody's expectations. Like, she's beating my expectations. She's beating your expectations. According to the Daily Mail, her bizarre comments were made during Sunday. She was with the Australian real estate conference and she was answering questions, and she was telling a funny story about her mother, I guess. So she sat on stage with this real estate agent industry veteran, John McGrath, for over an hour, and then she recalled a story about her mother, and she shared this funny story about her mom, about Playboy magazines being the, quoting her here, perpetuation of the human species, that's why Playboy magazines were created. I don't really even know what she's talking about here, but she recalled that her mother was very focused on women's reproductive health, which included sharing her thoughts about hormones and fibroids. Okay, so ovaries, I don't know. So she was talking about her mom and her mom's focus on reproductive health. Her mom was a cancer researcher, by the way. made really good money. When she says she's middle class, she's not. Her mother made really great money, and her father was a Ivy League professor. So yeah, she made plenty of money, and they were a wealthy family. So yes, it makes total sense for Kamala Harris to fly all the way to Australia to discuss hormones. When she's supposed to be there at a real estate conference talking about the housing crisis, the housing crisis that she didn't solve here in the United States in America while she was president. So she definitely needed to go share her expertise about the housing crisis in Australia because she just fixed it here in America. So she says this, quote, and I'm not being hyperbolic here. I'm not changing anything she said. My mother was actually very funny because she would say, you look at the cover of a Playboy magazine, let me just tell you, the reason the people are looking at these things, understand what they were developed for. The Playboy magazines were developed for the perpetuation of the human species. She was very practical that way. And so I'm quoting Kamala Harris here. Exactly. The audio is a little fuzzy and I just played it for you. But what? And of course, she ended the fake story here, or whatever story she pulled out of her bum with a fake cackle, because it wouldn't be Kamala Harris if she wasn't cackling like a hyena. And I don't mean to be rude to hyenas so by comparing them to Kamala Harris. But this woman doesn't have a coherent thought in her head. Can you believe that this individual, like I said, all show today, I've been saying George Washington, if he were to see some of these whack jobs running for Congress, current sitting congressmen taking pictures with their peanut butter jelly sandwiches. One selfie with a peanut butter jelly sandwich is odd. 2, 3, that's deranged. Could you imagine what George Washington would say about Kamala Harris? We dodged a bullet on that one. All right, I got to take a quick break here. Listening Conservative Cat. I don't even know what she's talking about there. Can anybody really decipher what she was saying here? So let's play this one more time. Here we go.
She would say, you look at, we're in the store or whatever. You look at the cover of Playboy magazine. Let me just tell you, the reason that people are looking at these things, understand why they were developed, for the perpetuation of the human species.
Awkward.
She would say,
So weird. I don't know. I can't begin to understand what's going on there. What? She was the best we had in 2020. Like, this was the candidate, the left's candidate for 2024. Australia, you can keep her. I hope she doesn't come back. Keep her, and you can keep the cackling hyena, Kamala Harris. All right, we are going to be talking about how the left is going to try to deceive you with language. So they have been talking about Democrats changing up their strategy. They want to market towards young men. They developed something for $20 million speaking to American men, which is some sort of campaign. They're going to try to study the viral content and what content men flee to. The Joe Rogans, the Theo Vons, right? And Donald Trump capitalized on that. And he got this Gen Z men vote, which is 18 to 27, which is a substantial a win, because nobody's ever done that before and obtained that vote outside of George H.W. Bush. It hasn't happened for years. So young men, I think it was 58% of young men, 58%, according to The Hill, of Gen Z men, that's voters ages 18 to 27, reported voting for Donald Trump. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. So appreciate you tuning in. Before we did the break, I was telling you about Kamala Harris. She can just stay there in Australia if she wants. Okay, stay there. We don't want you back. Just stay there. And yeah, and hyena cackle it up. And I mean, no offense to the jungle's cackling scavengers. Okay, by referring to or comparing them to Kamala Harris. Okay, so what is the left going to do? Because they screwed up the 2024 election. How are they going to win? Well, they're going to continue to try to mislead the masses by changing language. Okay, so there's problems with the word like equity. It places guilt on a large majority of the population because of nothing more than insignificant birth traits. You're white, you're male. Okay, these are insignificant traits. And they place guilt on you because you have these insignificant traits. So this combined with the insane phrases like justice impacted individuals, this is all intended to mislead and deceive the masses, and the media is complicit in this. Okay, so I told you yesterday about the AP style book. I had one in journalism school, and they said, hey, this is your Bible now. And what the AP style book is an entire book full of these terms. Okay, and you can't say equality, you got to say equity. You can't say criminal, you got to say justice impacted individual. You can't say third world country, you have to say developing nation. Okay, so they have alienated much of the sane population with this word change. And the Democrats want to stop using these phrases, and they want to start using, plain, simple language, which is great, but you see what they're admitting to is that, hey, we were deceiving you before, but now we're going to change it up, and we are going to start using simple plain language again, because our deception didn't work and we still lost the 2024 election. So let's take a listen to this here.
That's it. They're still searching for the voice in the Trump era. That's only 127 days old, so imagine how much harder it's going to get. A growing number within the Dem Party now say it's time to rethink how Democrats talk to voters. The Washington Post puts it this way, quote, Democratic troubles revive debate over left-wing buzzwords, end quote. Senator Ruben Gallego says some words are just too Ivy League tested terms. Governor Andy Beshear adds Democrats have begun to speak like professors. And from the Wall Street Journal, Rahm Emanuel teasing a White House bid saying Democrats' brand is weak. Rahm Emanuel calls the party's brand toxic and weak and woke, a nod to culture war issues he thinks Democrats have become too often fixated on that President Trump has successfully used against them. And earlier this month, longtime Democratic strategist James Carville was still talking. Check this out.
Don't use the word equity, use equality to your little heart's desire. People basically don't know what it means. This is another really stupid word, oligarch. Who the knows what an oligarch is? I wouldn't even use the LBGQT plus or whatever it is. I just call people gay, a lesbian, or trans.
In focus now, Michael Knowles, conservative podcaster and author. Great to see you again. First of all, your top line thoughts on finding some words that work.
The Democrats just can't help themselves. The Democrats are looking at this report out today in the New York Times shows that nearly half the countries in the country are triple trending Republican. Basically, none are triple trending Democrat. They have lost the people. And rather than look in the mirror and say, maybe we need to offer people something different, they say, no, we just need to speak in a way that these dumb idiots can understand. You heard their line. They said, we're speaking in a way that's too professorial. No, the problem isn't the words you're using. It's that you're offering open borders and crime and men in the women's bathroom and all sorts of things that the people don't want. The people are smart enough, and they're smart enough to reject you at the polls.
Okay, so look, oligarchs instead of rich people experiencing food insecurity instead of people who are going hungry, equity in place of equality or justice involved populations instead of prisoners. They're trying to outwoke themselves all of the time, the Democrats. And this isn't the reason why they lost the 2024 election. It's not the fact that they use this language. It's the intention of using this language is why they lost the 2024 election, because they intentionally are trying to mislead populations by changing words. And that doesn't sit well with people. That's exactly what this is the intention is to mislead people. And I agree with Michael Knowles. Yeah, of course, their policies and the open border policies and crime. That's why, they also lost the 2024 election. But this intentionally misleading me, I'm not buying the crap you're shoving down my throat. Okay, that's why people didn't, and I'm not buying into this mainstream media narrative. And Donald Trump saw such a distaste for this. American people have such a distaste for the misleading language that they have fled from mainstream legacy media and they have gone to these platforms like Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, these podcasters, right? They fled from the mainstream media because they don't want to be misled. And they know that you are feeding them a bunch of nonsense and they're done with it. And that's why, really, why they lost the 2024 election is because people aren't buying the propaganda anymore, specifically Gen Z men ages 18 to 27, 58% of which voted for Donald Trump. 58% of Gen Z men ages 18 to 27 reported voted for Donald Trump. That hasn't happened not since the election of George H.W. Bush, where the majority of young men voters are backing a Republican president. So this is huge. And there's a reason we shouldn't change words like felon or convicts to justice-involved populations, because not only does that mislead people, but it's also a big slap in the face to victims everywhere, victims of crimes everywhere. And it humanizes those who are convicted of heinous crimes. And the unhoused, that suggests that there's a problem with housing, and it has nothing to do with a lack of housing, and everything to do with the Democrats stealing your money from you and overtaxation. That's exactly what the problem with homelessness is, because they keep stealing your money from you. And the word equity, that's a socialist term. It's intended to create a mass level of poverty, and they dub that as equal. They want everybody to be equally impoverished, so that way the elites at the tippity top can look down below at you dirty little peasant. So, yeah, even if they start talking like normal folks, we're still going to realize that this is a disingenuous move and that you are intentionally trying to mislead us using semantics and language. So justice-involved individuals is only used by people who want to defund the police and do away with the prison system entirely. And, this oligarchs term, this was a new one that they've been using, oligarchs, to refer to wealthy people. And I think that one's pretty rich, considering that Democrats are funded by ultra wealthy people like Governor J.B. Pritzker and other progressive billionaires like George Soros, Bill Gates. So, yeah, and there's invisible donors. Kamala Harris had them. I think it was like $1.5 million. You have no idea where this comes from. There's these, even your local politicians, they get dark money from these nonprofit organizations that you can't really trace. So, Jim Rogel, look it up. Jim Rogel received dark money, and they had these individual or invisible donors put money towards a presidential candidate who had zero input from the voters. By the way, this was the most undemocratic election ever, and they're going to sit there and lecture you about oligarchs. Like, really? Come on. The very definition of oligarch is what you guys did with Kamala Harris, these invisible donors going towards a presidential candidate who had zero input from the primary voters. All right, I got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back, wrap this story up. Coming up in just a little bit, we are going to be talking about their new plan. So there's a new plan for Democrats. They want to spend $20 million and study why men think Democrats are terrible. So they're going to spend $20 million to figure this out. I'll tell you why they think you're terrible. It's because your policies, and it's because you are shoving crap down their throat that they know isn't true. So we're going to be right back. Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Democrats have $20 million. They're going to use $20 million to figure out the top reason as to why they lost the mail vote. Well, here's why they lost the mail vote. It's because they're willing to spend $20 million to learn why they lost the mail vote. That's so dumb. Okay, so we're going to get to that here in just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, using words and phrases, this is not going to appeal to swing voters in America, and it's doubtful that this will save them switching over to this plain language. The latest debate in part, you know, they really, what's going on here is they push this trans ideology stuff down your throat. These are very they talk in, these elite, highly educated circles and suggest that they're smarter, they're more virtuous, and they cast judgment upon you who speak more plainly. And I highly doubt that liberal candidates who, adopt this, that, hey, if we just change our language, this is going to be a formula that wins these people over. I highly doubt that's going to happen. Subscribe to the channel. I'll be right back. Ba-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Yes. Unhoused has nothing really to do with the lack of housing equity. It's really just a socialist term intended to create mass level poverty and make sure everybody's impoverished so that way the wealthy lords and ladies can look down upon you as a dirty little peasant, and justice involved individuals, impacting individuals. That term is used by people who want to defund the police or do away with the prison system entirely. Now they have this new term, it's called oligarchs, and this one's especially pathetic because they are actually oligarchs. They have admitted to invisible donors, are contributing to this presidential campaign of Kamala Harris's, and Kamala Harris was a presidential candidate who had zero input from the voters. She didn't go through a primary. She obtained 0 votes, and Democrats are always funded by the ultra wealthy. Now, Democrats, and this is according to the Washington Post, as Democrats wrestle with who to be in the era of President Donald Trump, a growing group of party members, especially centrists, are reviving the argument that Democrats need to rethink words they use to talk with voters whose trust they need to regain. They contend liberal candidates too often use language from elite, highly educated circles that suggests the speakers consider themselves smart or virtuous, while casting implied judgment on those who speak more plainly. Hardly a formula of winning people over, they say. Yeah, but the Washington Post goes on, they say the latest debate is in part also a proxy for the bigger battle over what Democrats' identity should be in the aftermath of November's devastating losses, especially as the party searches for ways to reverse its overwhelming rejection by rural and working class voters. Rural and white working class voters. That's what Washington Post reports. Yeah. I know that if they fix their language, that's really not going to appeal to the swing voters in middle America. It's not going to save them. The damage is already done. We have the memory, not of a goldfish, but we're human beings who understand when we're being lied to. These people can lie and pretend that they're moderate and that they're the liberals from the 80s. That's not true. In America, we're going to remember what they did to us in 2024 through 2021 to 2024 and how they lied to us and how they used semantics and fun, fluffy language to speak down to us. We're going to remember this. People have lives to live, and Americans are worse off when Democrats are in power and they're struggling to make ends meet. That's what they care about. No language revision is really going to change that. So language can change minds, but it also happens to it had the opposite effect here that the left had intended. They wanted to change minds by changing all of this language and mislead you, really. And it had the opposite effect. They pushed you away because you knew that they were trying to mislead you. And they're just so pathetic. Another pathetic ploy that they're trying to do here is spending $20 million to study why young men think Democrats suck. Okay, so the fact that you want to spend $20 million to study why men don't like you, that alone is probably a reason why men didn't vote for you, because it's dumb to spend $20 million on that, and men won't vote for dumb people, okay? So apparently choosing Tim Walz as the running mate, that was white dudes' like permission, like, go ahead, vote for a lady, guys. We've got Tim Walz here. And that was their strategy during the 2024 campaign. That was obviously a mistake. Now what they want to do is try a study. So they are going to try to study this, and they wrote this in the New York Times. I got to take a quick break, but I'm going to read a portion of the New York Times here, what Democrats are planning to do with this $20 million, and it's going to drop your jaw to the floor. I'll be right back. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Yeah, sorry. Thanks for being here. Subscribe to the channel. We are going to be talking a little bit about this $20 million. So journalismers, they've created another piece of Democrats still don't know why they lost the 2024 election. Here's how they're going to fix it content. Okay, so the New York Times is the latest one to do this. And they're holding meetings in fancy hotels to discuss, studies and spending money on studies and studying how they can appeal more to anyone really anyone who's not a childless cat lady. Okay, they want to figure out how to appeal to young men, specifically Gen Zers, because Donald Trump just completely destroyed them in that category, ages 18 to 17. Now, women, that's going to be women have always swung Democrat, and it's going to be hard to get those childless cat ladies vote because they've completely lost their minds, specifically young women my age. They have completely lost their minds, and it's really hard because if you say, no, let's leave Roe v. Wade up to the states, no abortion up to the 9th month, then all of a sudden they think that you're Hitler, and how could you? That's where these women are at. So it's going to be really hard to get their vote, and really, I think he can win elections without it, clearly, in 2024. We saw that to be true. So these Democrats and journalists, they have been making these posts or these publishing these articles about, hey, the Democrats don't know why they lost in 2024. It might be because of the language, but they also don't do really well with young men. And here's a paragraph from the New York Times. You guys are going to like this. The prospectus for one new $1,020,000 effort obtained by the Times aims to reverse the erosion of Democratic support among young men, especially online. So Democratic young men have traditionally gone, like millennials, Gen Z, they have all gone to the left, Democrats, okay? This is the George Bush 9/11 era, hey, Barack Obama is the next coming, right? That's these types of men. But now there's been a swing. And specifically these Gen Zs who weren't actually born in that time and didn't live throughout that time, they are not buying into the crap that they're selling. So they are launching something with this $20 million. It's called SAM. It's called Speaking with American Men, a Strategic Plan, and promises investment into the study of syntax, language, and content that gains attention and virality in these spaces. It recommends buying advertisements in video games, among other things. So their effort here is going to politicize video games. Yeah, I don't think that young men are going to like that. Okay, politicize and put political advertisements in video games. Okay. Democrats, they aren't liked because they say things like eating meat is racist, working out is racist, liking pretty girls is racist. They say that's right-winged, and how dare you eat meat because you're going to kill the planet, okay? And they have destroyed everything that you love, and they've gone after everything that you like. And, they love to destroy young men's life. If they make a joke on X from years ago, or if they are accused by a girl of doing anything to them, and they will believe the woman always, Me Too, that whole movement. And they've facilitated a culture where they have demonized and villainized young men. And I don't think that this $20 million campaign to shove more political ads down their face while they're playing video games is going to buy them over. Sorry. They don't have memories of goldfish. Good morning. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat. Cities 92.9. So do appreciate you being here this morning. Democrats are spending $20 million in this effort. So this is according to the New York Times. And, they keep doing this, the mainstream media. They keep publishing articles that say, this is why the Democrats lost in 2024. Here's how Democrats are going to fix it. They said they're losing because they're using big words when few do trick, right? That's why they lost. Okay, this is the latest one from the New York Times. They're saying that they lost because they don't do very well with young men, which is true. And they're holding meetings right now, the Democrat Party and the journalists, they're all together in these fancy hotels, and they're trying to figure out how to study young men and what they like, okay? And try to appeal to really anybody except a childless cat lady liberal. There's no hope for Gen Z women out there. They're absolutely lost their mind. But you can win elections without them. 2024 is a great example. Anyway, so here's what the New York Times says. The prospectus for one new $1 million $20 effort obtained by the Times aims to reverse the erosion of Democratic support among young men, especially online. It is codenamed SAM, Speaking with American Men, a Strategic Plan. So this is their initiative. They want to SAM it up, speak with American men. Who were they speaking to before? I guess they weren't speaking to American men. And promises to invest in a study, so $20 million, that looks at syntax, language, and content that gains attention and goes viral in these spaces. It also recommends buying advertisements in video games, among other things. So you're really going to politicize video games. I don't think the young men are going to appreciate that much. How about this? Democrats, stop saying things like eating meat, working out, liking pretty girls are all right wing. And how about that? Stop villainizing young men. Okay. How about that? And they're going to enter these video games with their political advertisements. And I don't think you're going to get a lot of young male voters by doing that. Democrats enter these spaces and they ruin them, and they hate everything that's fun and enjoyable because they're miserable people. And young dudes have found other spaces, your Joe Rogan podcast, your Theo Vance. They found other spaces. They don't have to deal with the mainstream media anymore, and that's why they're fleeing to these spaces. And the fact that these people are making decisions for the Democrat Party, like we're going to spend $20 million to study why young men don't like us. Probably the fact that you're willing to spend $20 million on this study is why young men didn't vote for you in 2024, because you're a moron. And these people are making the decisions for the Democrat Party. They were also probably the people who were controlling Joe Biden. And they still think that the only reason why people didn't vote for Kamala Harris was because she's a woman. Like, I think that they'd have a better return on investment if they took that $20 million, got it all up into a pile, lit it on fire. And I think that would be a better return on investment than throwing it away on this study. Because here, I'll give you the results of your study. Young men don't like you because you constantly villainize them, and you constantly go after things that they love, like eating meat and working out and claiming that it's racist, okay? Or going after them and destroying their lives simply because they make a joke on X or made a joke on Twitter from 2014, and you dig it up. You make their lives miserable. Like, that's why they don't like you. You blame them for oppressing this fake victim class that you created. Well, I'm curious what they're going to say next. All right. You guys have a blessed day. Bye. Love you. Talk to you again tomorrow.